All right. It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. Just getting some work in today. I have a light weekend. I don't have any gigs this weekend. I have a rehearsal tomorrow. But I had a rare Friday night off last night, so that was all right. That was all right. Just got to chill. This morning, got some stuff done already. And now we're going to have a little practice session today. Still getting it together. I was up pretty early, randomly, just woke up. I do that sometimes. I'll just wake up randomly and be up. So I decided at 4:30 this morning that, hey, let's do this live thing today, and I'm going to try some stuff that I don't normally get into. And I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to get a little warmed up. I got this thing set up, and then I did some stuff around the house. So it's funny, this conversation comes up pretty often with drummers that everybody does like something when they first sit down at the kit, and whether it's go right into a rock beat or like just hit everything, make sure everything still works and makes sounds. It's always good to check to make sure that your drums still work. I just like to get the hands loose, nothing too fast or crazy. I'm not that kind of player anyway, so I'm just going to get a little loose, so bear with me for a little while. Check it out. Leave a message in the chat. Please do like the stream, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, please also hit that subscribe button, and I would greatly appreciate that. So welcome in, Saturday morning session. Let's check it out. I'm going to turn this vocal mic off so that the good sounds come through and not some crazy loud raucousness. Yeah, I'm just going to get a little loose. right, just getting a little loose, getting the hands warmed up here this morning. So you can get things going. It's a little chilly down here. I got the fireplace on, which is lovely. I'll get this room nice and warm. I like it warm. I hate the cold. The cold is brutal. Temperatures are starting to go down here on the East Coast. Not a fan. Not a fan. Makes the hands tight. Takes a while to get loose. So even that, I played a good bit. Was it like 6-7 minutes? And still a little loose. You gotta stretch them out. It's always good. You know, before a gig, I always hit the pad at a gig before I start hitting. Some nice open strokes, different tempos. It's really great practice to warm up properly before you play a gig, before you sit down for a practice session. You know, you don't want to injure the hands. I've been through some hand and tendonitis issues before. It's terrible. it's absolutely awful. So don't put yourself through that. Make sure you're always stretching, moving the hands, you know, even down to individual fingers. Make sure everything's nice and loose in there. You know, get some of these. Give it a little twist. Don't overstretch, though. You don't want to pull anything out. Some of these. Make sure your range of motion is starting to feel real open and flexible. Is what you're really kind of going for with the stretch. And there we go. So we're a little loose. A couple nice things in there. It's funny whenever I just sit down to just kind of warm up and get acquainted with the instrument at the beginning of a session. There's no expectations. You know, some things will be cool. Some things will be a mess. But it's always kind of nice when something will kind of pop out. It's like, oh, that was interesting. You know, and then you try to keep that in mind for when you got other stuff happening. If you're gonna work on something, like I've had sessions where I'll sit down and I'll go through my warm up, and I'll find something, and like, oh, you know what? That's gonna be my practice session now today, and find like some cool figure that came out just in these ramblings, as they say. I think Mike Windish, my buddy Mike Windish, calls them when he does his drum ramblings or something like that. I always like those. Shout out to Mike Windish, my dude. But yeah, it's always fun to just sit down and explore the instrument. Try different sounds. There's no pressure when you're in your home practice space, your studio. Just kind of getting loose and relaxing with your instrument. You should never be practicing and things like that at home by yourself. Should never be stressful and high pressure. You're here to work. You want to be concentrated, and you want to, you put a little pressure on yourself, of course, as we all do, to get better and make, we want to make progress every session we sit down. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes, things go awry, and that's okay. That's totally okay. And you have bad practice sessions. And I've had sessions too where I'll sit down for a little bit. I'll get things going. I'll get into, what I wanted to practice, and it's not going well, and it gets frustrating, and you walk away. Put the sticks down, walk away, go do something around the house, go pet the cats because they're awesome, and then come back later and give it another go. And oftentimes that kind of pays off, and at least it does for me anyway. It's good to walk away again because there's no pressure down here. There's no, especially, for me personally, I don't have deadlines at the moment. I don't have like some. Like in college, you get a piece of music, you have to learn it by this date, you got to be prepared for this rehearsal, you got to be ready for this concert. Well, now I'm at the point where, I'm gigging pretty much every weekend with different groups. Yes, there's some times where I need to come down here and I need to learn some songs and try some different things. And I have my deadlines. I was like, okay, well, I need to know this for the next gig. But a lot of the time, for me, again, it's just speaking from my personal situation, but a lot of the time, what I have when I come down here is just working on things for me and for things that I want to get better at and make progress on with my own personal playing, and that's so part of the whole idea with doing the YouTube thing and trying the live stuff and even putting out some different videos here and there is it kind of puts a little added pressure on me, which I like to work under pressure. Yeah, I like it. It's good for me, I think. But it's still not. I'm not stressed about this session right now. I know I have a couple of things that it's funny. I thought of. I've been thinking about lately. I'll kind of start to get to the point of what today's practice session is going to be about for me. And so I've been thinking about lately the whole Insta drummers and drum chops and all that kind of stuff. It's funny. So the term chops in my world growing up, and I have a strong drum and bugle corps background. I marched 10 seasons of drum corps with the Reading Buccaneers. But with that background, if someone says, "Oh man, you got chops," you're playing. That dude's killer. He's got killer chops. It means you got great hands. You can play all kinds of wacky stuff on a snare drum or the quad dudes. But a drum set, and I don't even know when it started, where it started. But a chop, singular, a chop, is what I would call a lick. A drum lick or a fill. A specified pattern around the drums that is interesting. And guys call it a chop. I don't know. I think it's a little weird, but that's, maybe I'm old. Maybe that's, get off my lawn. But so in that realm, there is some really cool stuff. Like these Insta drummers, like they're doing spectacular things. Like the guys that are doing it well are off the chain, and I'm entertained by it. I sit there, I watch the videos, I'll check them out. But it also kind of, it starts to get to the point where it all kind of sounds the same. There's not a lot of dynamic contrast and a lot of stuff. They're just wailing away and playing all this wild, fast, interplay between the kicks and the toms and snare drums. And the coordination of it's great. And it's beautiful stuff. And, oh, hey, Kevin Free, what's up, my dude? Yeah, how about the chops? Yeah. And I still, relate to it that way. And I think musicians in general still say, hey, man, that dude's got chops, and that's cool. That doesn't mean he can play all the licks, because I certainly can't play all the licks. It's just a different thing. It's just a vernacular that I think is a little bit strange. But drummers took to it, and that's a thing. A chop, singular, is a lick. I'm down. But one of the things I've never really gotten into being able to play that kind of stuff. I'm an improvisational kind of guy. Like my playing comes from me trying to stay within the tune of what's going on, or depending on, granted, probably 90% of the musicians that I work with, we're playing improvisational music, whether it's, the jazz stuff, or, really just, I'm sorry, I'm flipping with my screen here. I just got to get the chat screen set up correctly because it's a little wacky. There, I think I got it, so I can see everything properly. All right, that's better for me. So, funny, my childhood drum teacher, John Rossum, is calling me right now. I'm gonna hit him back after this, see what's going on. But yeah, a lot of what I do is improvisational. The band and the musicians that I work with, are really heavy on the improvisation side. So I don't really spend time on specific licks, so to speak. I spend time on sounds and trying different colors and, staying out of, a super tight framework. I'll put some constraints on things, certainly depending on what kind of music it is I'm working on. But a lot of it is I'm just going to play what's off the top of the dome, as they say, and hope for the best, and and trust my instincts in a live situation that what's going to come out is going to be effective and it's going to be musical and fit the situation. So what I'm going to do today is go a little bit out of my realm and I'm going to work on a couple just simple licks. I'm calling them licks. I can't call them a chop. I just can't do it. I'm going to work on a couple simple, at least I think they're simple. It's funny, again, I thought of this at 4:30 this morning. I was like, I had this thing in my head. Oh, well, I'll just put down a couple combinations and see how that works and see what's what. So I got the first one I'm going to work on here this morning is, I would show you the page, but that you probably can't see it. I just jotted it down in pencil real quick. It's too light. So it's right, left, right, foot, foot, right, left, right, foot, foot, right, left, right. And the sticking is, I should just say hand, hand, hand. So hand, 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 foot, foot, hand, 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 foot, foot, hand, foot, hand, foot, hand, bum. So it's one bar. It's a 16th note feel. So I'm just going to get into it here. I'm going to put a metronome on, nice and slow. Where am I at? 88. 88. And, the kind of the way I work on things, if I do have a specific pattern I need to learn, I'm just going to sit on the snare drum for a while, and, always keeping time with the left foot, of course. That's always going to be a big part of what's happening. Let's keep the coordinate with the left foot so you can relate that downbeat constantly. And then I'm just going to work on the snare drum to get the feel and start to get that coordination aspect of it into my hands and feet and see what happens. So here we go. This is going to be nice and boring. If you're hanging out watching, feel free to chime in the chat. I would love to know how things sound. I'm still fighting with technology as far as the live stuff goes down here. It's been the bane of my existence for a few months now, but I think I'm making a little progress. I think it might be okay. But yeah, drop a comment and let me know how the sound's coming through, either vocal and or the drums themselves. But yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna go in. This is again, like I said, it's gonna be boring, but we're gonna break it down, and this is what I'm working on today. And here's pattern number 1. Let me get this click on here. So you can already kind of hear, let me stop this click. You can already kind of hear, and again, big part of practice time is be self-critical. It's okay. Again, in this situation, there's no pressure. It's good to be self-critical. And I can already kind of hear in my playing, again, I'll go back and watch this recording though too, to double check what I'm hearing, because that's always good. Video as much as you can when you practice. And, but so I hear when I get to basically the back half of this thing, where it's that. So it's the and of 3 and a 4E and a 4E. I'm not super smooth in there. And so that's something I need to focus in on. And it's, for me, it's probably my foot. That's a majority of, my timing issues. If I do hear something, it's more than likely going to be something out of my foot. So now I'm going to keep rolling with that. And I'm going to really make sure that I'm listening and concentrating on that right foot on the and. The foot is on the and the E, the of 3 and the E of 4. So let's go again. And you can even check it out too. Give it a listen and you'll hear it. Pretty sure I hit record on the first first reps on my DAW, so it was coming through. I was like, why does it sound so wild? Let's try that again. I just want to hit play so the click goes. That's better. Hey. All right, so we're making a little progress. It's already starting to feel. Let me get this click stopped. Stop clicking. So I already feel a little bit more comfortable, and I'm starting to be able to open up the rhythms. You know, we're playing 16th notes at a slow tempo, so you just got to understand. I need to think about all that air between the 4/16th notes, and there's air there. There's space. Let me see if it's tough looking at a mirror image trying to get. There we go. Get your equidistant. I can't do it. It's fine. But finding that open air, especially when you're going between two limbs and two sound surfaces, you know, trying to make sure that space still stays nice and open. Now, I'm going to keep going with that a little bit. And the next step, you know, we're still going to stay at this nice, easy, I shouldn't say easy, I should say slow tempo. Sometimes slower is harder. A lot of times slower is harder, but it helps with the accuracy thing, and it helps with the coordination thing. You got to teach your muscles how to do things. I always, you know, give this spiel to people when I'm talking about coordination stuff on the drums. It's like muscles are dumb. Your brain is much smarter than what your muscles are. It's just, you know, it's just how it goes. Your brain gets this, you know, creates the signal first, and has to get to your muscles and train your muscles how to do things. So even though your brain knows exactly my brain knows exactly what this pattern should sound like, and essentially what it should feel like in my hands, in my feet, the foots, I'm still having to train the muscles to understand how that all works together. So that's why we do things slow, so that the muscles can learn. And eventually, you know, you think about, you know, drummers that are checking this out. You think about like learning a rock beat, you know, and the first thing you gotta figure out is your eighth notes on the hi-hat. And I could sit here, you know, because I've been playing a long time at this point, I could sit here and play that rock beat and have a full conversation with you. I'll try to play real quiet so it doesn't. And sit here and talk for a while, because my muscles have learned this pattern and this coordination from doing it so many times over so many years of playing, that now my muscles have it figured out. And now I can take my brain essentially out of the equation in that respect. You know, and just let the muscles go and do what they do and let it all happen. And that's really the point you want to try to get to with anything you work on. You know, specific, you know, again, this is all my references. This is what I try to work on. You know, when I practice, I want to get things to the point where my muscles just understand them and can do those kinds of things. So that way, when I'm in the live setting doing the improvisational stuff, it'll just happen. And I won't get caught up in some weird coordination thing, because I'm most likely not going to try to play something that I can't physically perform well, you know, in a live situation. Because it's just how it goes. You know, when I'm playing live, I'm thinking about the whole band and the big picture of everything that's happening within the band. I'm not thinking about, I got to play this lick, and then I got to play this beat, and this has to go here, and this has to go here. There's no way. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. So you're having that practice time in, and your muscles having the knowledge, your brain has instilled the knowledge into the muscle pieces, and now it's just a matter of finding that flow and being in the full picture of the ensemble, and, you know, and letting your brain think big musical picture and not thinking coordination picture. You should never, in a live situation, you should never be thinking about, you know, a coordination thing. You know, can I do this? You know, is this going to work? You know, you should always be prepared enough whether it's a new gig or if it's a gig you've been playing forever ever, you should never be in the gig in a live situation and be concerned that, uh-oh. I mean, yeah, you're going to take your chances sometimes, and some nights your hands feel better than others, from a strength standpoint. And I mean, I certainly have nights where it's like, oh, the hands feel really good tonight. Things are going to be happening, and it's just going to feel easier. And there's other nights where I was like, well, I'm a little tight tonight, so I need to know that, and be conscious of that, and make sure that I'm, just putting a little bit of thought process into making sure my muscles are listening to what my brain wants it to do, if that makes sense. But that's, I mean, these are all just my internal thoughts as I gig and whatnot, and hope for the best. So now, I'm gonna keep going with this first pattern that I'm working on today, and I'm gonna keep hitting it. And then to the next step is I'm gonna keep it at this tempo, but I'm gonna start to move it around the drums. Now is where drumming creativity and drumming improvisation kind of starts to come into play. Yes, I've created this framework, this one measure chop or lick, as I'm going to call it. I've created this, put myself in these constraints of these are the notes I'm going to play. But now you can do some exploration and see what kind of orchestrations you can kind of come up with. Some's going to sound cool, some's going to sound weird. But and we'll see what happens. I mean, again, none of this is pre-planned. I'm just going for it. So I'll start on the snare drum. We're going to keep this nice, slow tempo. Once I start to feel comfortable and I feel like the muscles are understanding things, we'll start to progress around the kit a little bit and see what happens. Let me get this click going and make sure I didn't record like I did previously, and get it going here. And feel free, if you have questions or comments, please do drop them in the chat, and I'll make sure I'm browsing the chat as things come through, and I can hit you up. And also, if you're just here lurking, that's cool too. But do feel free to just say a quick hey if you feel so compelled. Make sure you do like the stream and hit that subscribe button if you have not done so as of yet. It really helps things out. I'm starting to make a little bit of a push from the YouTube side. I mean, it's more for me to put some pressure on, and I just would like to have a little community here to hang out and drum and make some music and talk music. So that's why I'm doing a variety of things on the channel. So do check out some different videos. Browse through. We got the beat of the week happening. I got a couple interviews up already. I have another interview coming up. My buddy Josh Orlando is coming in a couple weeks to sit and talk some drums, which is going to be incredible. Like, that dude's off the hook. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I got some other instrumentalists lined up as well to come in and talk about music. So do please follow the channel, subscribe, all those cool things. Now I'm gonna practice now. I'm gonna get this thing going. Yo, Jim Miller, what's happening, my dude? Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Appreciate you, my friend. So now we can put it into a little bit of context. Is the next step. So here I get caught a couple of times as I'm moving around the kit, trying different things, and still not, 90, not 100% on the coordination. So when you move to sound sources, that starts to create some new issues with what you got going on. So now next step though is let's put it in some context. So I'm going to put a beat behind it. So we're going to play a little bit of the beat, and then this is our, again, keeping in these constraints for learning purposes. I'm going to play a beat, and then that's going to be my fill. And same process. I'm just going to start playing that as the fill solely on the snare drum, and then after that's comfortable, mostly comfortable, I'll start moving that particular pattern around the drums now while we're in context. Again, still sitting at this slower tempo. So let me grab that here. Let me get my click. Turn off this microphone. All right, let me turn this click off here. Stop the click. My dude Greg, quite the far cry from standing under a tree playing legatos for 4 hours. Bro, how about it? Back in the drum corps days. Good times, good times. But hey, it made us good, made us understand. It was brutal. It was brutal. So now I'm starting to get a little bit of a feel for this particular pattern. Is it great? Am I going to use it at a gig yet? No, absolutely not. It's certainly not there. It's not in. It's not an instinctual thing yet. So it's something I'm going to spend some time on. 'Cause, it's kind of a cool little thing, and it's nice in context. And you probably noticed, and maybe you did, maybe you didn't. My hi-hat foot already went to eighth notes when I worked on the pattern. I was doing quarter notes. I feel like that kept the flow. Once I got into the groove part of it, the eighth notes, the left foot eighth notes on the hats kind of, I feel like, helped groove through the fill and kind of helped move things along and kind of rumble through, which is, I think it's a big deal. I think, fills, licks, chops need to have feel to them. It needs to be still in the groove. I'm playing this, kind of rolling kind of groove. Well, the fill should kind of feel like that too. And by using eighth notes with my left foot, that helps continue that progress of rolling along. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put the click up a little bit. I'm going to push the tempo just a touch, but start back at square one. So we could go back to just the snare drum, and then we'll move it around. Then we'll add the beat in there. Gee, my dude, I find my hi-hat foot bouncing eights even if I'm not opening it. Yeah, that's a thing too. I'll sit here, if I'm in something, I'll feel time there. Even, if I'm not playing that hat. I think there's pluses and minuses to that. I do it often, which is good for time and feel, I think. Feeling that in the body, knowing where things are happening. But on the flip side, as they say, it also puts you in a bit of a constraint, and keeps you more in this metronomic mindset as opposed to a broader mindset, isness, if you will. But again, I still do it, and I do sit on these eighth notes a lot. I'm trying to get better because I've started, over the past year, I've been really working at developing more hi-hat independence. So that way, in a tune, I don't necessarily have to play time there unless it's appropriate. There's a lot of times where it is appropriate. If I'm playing a ride pattern, that's pretty straightforward, and the band is playing something that's pretty straightforward, then it's absolutely appropriate to play straightforward left foot hi-hat through that time. It also helps the band, certainly, if you're doing something wacky with your hands from a, rhythmic grouping standpoint, and you have a solidifier right here, if the hi-hat's going on, that's going to help your mates to understand where that time sits. So let me go back to, let me bump up the click just a little bit and see if I make a hash of this, or if I can if I can get through it. Let's see, we're 88. Let's go 96. We'll go 8 up. Let me just hear what that click sounds like here. So that's another thing. When I'm working and practicing, I try to use the click or music, actual music, when I work on stuff. Like I'll take, you can get cool loops to just drum over, or take an actual song that has parts, and rather than play the song, you can play a figure that you're working on, stuff like that, just to kind of make it a more interesting musical session. But for certain things, I really do just like having that click there, to provide tempo. And still learning to play with the click instead of playing to the click. Um, Kevin, my dude, this is cool. Thanks, Jeff. Love those groups of right, left, right, foot, foot all day. Got to run. Yeah, man. Yeah, super fun stuff. But thanks for popping in. Appreciate you. And I'll catch you when I catch you, man. We got to hang out sometime. Um, but yeah, it's good to use the click. And yeah, as I say, like trying to play with the click and not play to the click. I think there's a distinct difference there. Playing with the click is being proactive with the time from yourself and making sure that your time is with the click. If you're playing to the click, then you're being a little bit reactive to it and you're letting that metronome dictate everything, rather than sitting with the metronome. And, it's got to be a symbiotic, there we go, that's the word, symbiotic relationship, I feel, between the click and the musician, and that's for any instrument, really. People, rely too much on the click for creating the time rather than setting it up and playing with instead of playing to. So here we go. So I bumped it up a little bit, and I'm just going to break it down on the snare drum first so I can learn the feel here. Let's get the click going. And let me turn this mic off so it's not obnoxious. So, click off. Jim Miller, very cool. Also makes for a good backing track for those of us on other shows. Yeah, right on, man. Dig it, dig it. Yeah, it's a fun little thing. Yeah, to be able to hit some stuff like this. It's very cool. Gee, best feeling in the world. You just must see this chat window gets in the way. Massage those air spaces until locked. Love it, dude. Yeah, appreciate you, man. It's you can start to see I'm getting a little more comfortable with it. Is it perfect yet? No. Is it at a performance level? Absolutely not. We're not there yet. Still need to experiment with some different orchestrations and things like that. But it's starting to have a little bit of a feel now. It's starting to get in there, and putting it in context like that with a beat that it makes sense with. That's the other thing too. When you're, for me, if I want to work out and try a new fill idea, I always kind of want it in context, in some kind of context, some kind of musical context, and make sure that it's going to be appropriate in some kind of situation. So that way, if I'm playing some Latin tune, I'm probably not going to use this because this isn't a Latin fill. This is like a groovy, funky kind of fill because it's got those chop elements to it with the kick drum interplay and whatnot. So it wouldn't work there. So I wouldn't want to work on that and play a Latin beat and then play that as a fill because it's just not going to be all that advantageous in a live situation to do that. You'll probably get some looks from some bandmates if you're playing that in a Latin tune or a swing tune, stuff like that. So that's the other big thing for me. If I'm gonna learn a lick or a chop, as you will, then I want to learn it in context with an appropriate style. So a lot of what I do is completely different styles. Like I do the funk stuff, I do the rock stuff, I do the jazz stuff, I do a little bit of Latin stuff. I have the soul stuff with the organ quartet. But it's just a matter of finding these idioms to work within and get them happening. Yeah, gee, you'll get less gigs for that. That's for sure. Yeah, exactly. As a working musician, you want to make sure you're playing what's appropriate and what's going to elevate the big picture. And make our job as drummers is to make the band sound better. It's pretty simple. And whether that's playing simple with a lot of air and a lot of space, if that makes the band sound better, then that's what we should do. Or other situations, if we're the push, if we're the driving force, but behind the shape of how things are going, then yeah, we want to play a little bit more and be have the opportunity to be a little bit more notey, as they say, and kind of kick things up to really support the energy of the band. But it and it's one thing I like to go back to is so there's a drummer, Louis Palmer, unbelievable player. Like he's out on the West Coast, done a ton of stuff. Like I've dabbled with his online course, and he's got so much great stuff in there. So check it out. I'll put a link in there to Louis' course. It's called playbetterdrums.com, and tons of material on there. It's really good. But one thing he talks about is, and he actually, I forget who he talked about that with. I want to say it may have been a Peter Erskine thing. But it's sound and time over everything. So you want to make sure your time's really solid and you're making that great bass, and you make your quality of sound as best as you can. Whether you're just hitting a tom, or a snare drum or a cymbal, you want those, your approach, your technical approach needs to make those instruments, those sound sources, sound really great. And when you're in the band situation, if you're playing fast licks, you better make sure the quality of sound is there. If you're just kind of sloughing through stuff and it's mushy, then you're kind of a hack, and that's not going to get it done. So for me, I got to take time down here. I've never been the natural talented guy. You know, people say that to me, but oh, you got so much talent. No, I've had to spend hours working. You know, this is work. This is, you know, it's a development that's taken pretty much my entire life to where I am now, and where I want to continue to develop and improve. You know, there is no limit really, you know, except what I would put on myself. You know, if I discipline myself to come down here and put in some work, then I'm going to keep going. And if I don't, then I'll flatline and probably drop off a little bit as I get older, because it's harder to kind of keep up with, you know, the muscles and the speed and stuff like that. So, at any rate, it has been an hour. I'm actually going to continue practicing because that's what I'm doing today. But I'm going to go ahead and relinquish the live stream situation. I do thank you all for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so as of yet. I would really appreciate that. Like I said, I'm trying to, you know, drive the YouTube stuff a little bit and see how it goes. You know, I did hit 200 subscribers this past week, which is, hey man, I'll take it. You know, it doesn't mean I'm making any money. I don't plan on making any money from this anytime soon, if at all, ever. But it is a fun way for me to work on the technology aspect of music, and also, you know, keeps me, you know, kind of in focus for trying new things and not just getting, you know, content with the gigs that I have. So I appreciate y'all. My dude G, word, WERD, my dude. And I'm going to catch you on the next one. I'm just going to play a little bit, and we'll fade this thing out. Actually, nah, we're going to fade it out, and I'm going to go get some work in. I'll catch you all on the next one. Thanks so much for hanging.